In the peaceful forests of rural Sweden, tragedy struck one quiet summer evening. A woman's body was found near a lakeside trail, torn, bloodied, and lifeless. To the villagers, the answer seemed obvious. This was murder. And before the sun rose again, her husband, a quiet, aging man, was in handcuffs. In a place where everyone knew everyone, the story spread like wildfire. The gentle handyman next door, now branded a killer. But the truth, when it finally came, would shake the entire village and redefine the line between guilt and innocence. This isn't just a crime story. It's a story about assumption, isolation, and how one wild twist in nature exposed the dangers of human judgment. Before we begin, if you believe stories like this remind us that truth can hide in plain sight, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves true mysteries, and subscribe for more real stories that reveal the strange, the tragic, and the unbelievable. Because sometimes, the most shocking murderer isn't human at all. Let's quickly get into the story. It was a tranquil summer evening on the shores of a secluded Swedish lake. Golden light filtered through birch and pine as a 63-year-old woman strolled down a narrow forest path with her dog. She never returned home. When darkness fell and the dog returned alone, her husband went searching. Deep in the woods, he made a grisly discovery. His wife's body lay beside the lakeside trail, her clothes torn, and her life brutally ended. The news sent shockwaves through the rural village near Loftahammar in Småland. Neighbors gathered anxiously at the scene, and police officers cordoned off the area with tape. The idyllic hamlet was in mourning. Almost immediately, investigators concluded this was not an accident. The woman's wounds were severe. Her leg bore a large gash, and her chest was crushed, prompting detectives to suspect foul play. Within hours of the body being found along the forest road, police had focused on the only person with her, her husband. He was 69, nearly 7 decades old, and had reported her missing, but investigators rapidly treated him as the prime suspect. In a dramatic escalation, the man was arrested that same night on suspicion of murdering his wife. He spent 10 days in custody, held under guard while forensic exams were conducted and evidence was collected. The village reacted with fear and outrage. Rumors swirled at the dinner tables and in church. Many quietly assumed the husband must be guilty. In the days that followed, he grew a tired, haunted look and kept mostly to himself. By that winter, he felt forced out of the community. "I was seen as a killer in my town," he later told reporters, and eventually relocated farther from Västervik to escape the hostile whispers. The once friendly neighbors now crossed the street when they saw him coming. His world, once full of routine farm life and walks in the woods, had turned upside down under the shadow of suspicion. For months, the investigation stalled. Detectives questioned villagers, searched the scene again and again, and even entertained wild theories. They considered everything from a random stranger to a hunting accident. But nothing fit. Finally, forensic scientists began to uncover a startling clue. Analysis of hair and other biological material from the crime scene showed it did not come from any human weapon. It came from an elk, the European moose. Autopsy reports later described injuries unlike any ordinary murder. The victim had widespread blunt force trauma, a massive chest crush, and a gaping tear on one leg into which blades of grass were embedded. Signs inconsistent with knives or stones. A forensic team noted that the edges of the torn fabric were fringed, and the muscles torn in a pattern more like an animal kick than a human blow. In fact, investigators initially thought at one point that a lawnmower might have caused such injuries. But laboratory experts, confounded by the mismatched clues, consulted wildlife specialists. The final tests delivered an unbelievable conclusion. The hairs and tissue they collected on the victim's clothing belonged to a moose, and the wound patterns matched a hoof impact. At a press conference in nearby Västervik, the county police announced the stunning revelation. What was first characterized as a murder has now been shown to be a tragic accident, said police spokeswoman Cecilia Brick. In court filings and statements, officials confirmed that the supposed murder weapon had been nothing of the sort. The true culprit was an elk that had wandered into the clearing that night. Incredibly, the damage on the victim's body corresponded precisely to hoof prints. Even wildlife experts agreed. A protective moose cow, provoked by the woman's dog, had lashed out and stomped her to death. It was the improbable made probable, as one police spokesman put foxnews.com. The accused husband was immediately released from custody. All charges were dropped early the next year. But the change in legal status did not undo the months of suffering he endured. By then, he had lost friends and reputation. He had lived under the stigma of a suspected murderer, confined by bail conditions and the judgmental eyes of others. He had feared the police and missed precious time with his grieving family. In his community, scars remained. Children edged away. Former friends gave curt nods. The old man quietly told reporters, "I have been detained on suspicion of a crime that was never committed." Seeking to right this wrong, he took his case to the courts. Swedish law allows compensation for wrongful prosecution, so he sued the state for damages. Swedish radio later reported that he demanded roughly 621,000 Swedish krona, about $70,000, to cover the suffering and lost income he had suffered. His attorney publicly criticized the investigators for jumping to conclusions, noting that the man had been treated as a killer from day one. In interviews, the husband expressed a mixture of relief and bitterness. Relief that he was finally cleared, and bitterness that he had been dragged through hell by authorities who never considered this bizarre possibility. Meanwhile, experts used the case as a cautionary tale. Zoologists and forensic scientists pointed out that moose attacks on people are extraordinarily rare, but they can be deadly, especially if a cow feels threatened by dogs. This particular moose, researchers noted, had consumed fermented berries in the forest, possibly becoming unusually aggressive, a so-called drunken moose, a phenomenon known in the Swedish woods. In other words, A series of unlikely events had combined into this tragedy. Today, the man lives much as he did before, but not entirely. He travels little and remains wary of small-town whispers. However, he takes some consolation in the truth. Officially vindicated, he focuses on rebuilding what was lost. His case has prompted inquiries into the original investigation, and the police department publicly apologized for the error. While money and apologies cannot bring back a life, they acknowledge the failure of the justice system in this dark episode. This strange case has become a lesson for the community and beyond. In the forests of Sweden, where moose roam freely, even lawmen must remember that not all killers wear a human face. For one man who faced the ultimate injustice, the moose attack became a redemption arc. Finally cleared by science, he now works to obtain the compensation and closure he deserves. The eerie hoofprints that once spelled death for his wife now mark a path toward truth and restoration. A reminder that sometimes even the wildest suspicions need a second look. In the end, the man who lost his wife also lost his peace. Accused, shunned, and broken by a system too eager to find a villain. When the truth finally emerged, that his beloved had been killed by a wild moose, not by human hands, relief came. But so did silence. He was cleared of all charges, but not of the scars left by suspicion. He walks the same forest paths now, where shadows of that night still linger, and every echo of the wind through the birch trees reminds him how easily truth can be trampled. The case became a legend, whispered in villages, taught in police academies, a reminder that justice isn't always about who pulled the trigger. Sometimes, it's about how fast we decide who did. If this story moved you, tap the like button, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more true stories that show how fragile justice can be. Because in the still forests of Sweden, the footprints of truth can belong to anyone, even a moose.